Hello and welcome back, adventurers. Today we are going to rank the subclasses or Grim Fascinations for the brand new Necromancer class. Yep, we're going to continue on our impossible magic coverage. There are four Grim Fascinations that we need to rank today. So, first, what does a Grim Fascination give you? Well, at level one, you're going to get a Grave spell that is specific to your subclass, it is a focus spell. You're also going to get a Thrall enhancement that is special to you, and your choice acts as a prerequisite to a level 12 feat that is available just for your subclass. Before we jump in, though, and start ranking these, I need to talk about how I rank subclasses in general. Though it's not always the same, this is usually where I go with it. So on screen, as you can see, this is a subclass that is just clearly mechanically stronger for combat than other subclasses while not falling behind in other pillars of play that naturally fit the class well. Basically, this acts as like the default or right way to play the class, and I don't see this a ton in Pathfinder 2e, but it does come up occasionally. A is a subclass that will be strong in combat in any adventure. It not only is strong on its own, but it makes the team stronger as well. Because remember, Pathfinder 2e is a cooperative team based game, and a good subclass takes advantage of that. Also, this subclass leans into the strengths of the class generally, including in social exploration if that's what the class is good at. B is a subclass that is mechanically strong on its own or does a good job boosting up the rest of the party, but usually not both. It may be especially strong in certain campaigns, but not in others. It may also land here because it just doesn't do a good job of leaning into what the class is best at or lacks versatility outside of combat, but is still good other than that. C is a subclass that lands here because it's just not strong in combat in any campaign or just a very, very specific one only, or at least not better than like the base class without a subclass. It might not take advantage of the special properties of the class or what the class does best. And D is a subclass that you should avoid. It may actually detract from the base class in some way, or at least baits the player into playstyle that isn't rewarding or that struggles to find success. There's likely nothing advantageous about taking that subclass. Okay, now with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right in here and start with our first subclass, Blood. The grave spell you get is Blood Infusion. This is a two action focus spell. Has a range of 30 feet. You're going to target one thrall in that range of 30 feet. And the effects here last for a minute, and there's a fortitude save involved. So when you cast this, then you choose your thrall. A creature within 15 feet of that thrall, one creature, fills with blood and must make a fortitude save. On a crit success, nothing happens. On a success, it loses any immunity it had to bleed, and then is considered to have blood. Also, it takes one persistent bleed damage. On a fail, the creature is going to take 1d6 persistent bleed damage with all those same success criteria. Crit fail, same as success again, but now it's 2d6 persistent bleed damage. Heighten plus 1 adds 1 bleed damage to the success, 1d6 to fail, and 2d6 to the crit fail scenarios. The outcome you care most about honestly happens on success here. You get them bleeding, and they're not immune to bleed. Those are really helpful to you with this subclass, as we'll see in a little bit here. That matters a lot. And then a fail is actually a good amount of damage just on its own. Crit fail is a crazy amount of damage, but I usually don't care much about the crit fail outcome because it doesn't happen very often. Still, that's a lot of bleeding. Your thrall enhancement. Whenever one of your thralls is destroyed, regain one hit point. This increases by one every 4 levels. So at level 5, you're getting 2 hit points whenever one is destroyed. So the amount of healing might seem low, but keep in mind that you are destroying thralls a lot for what you want to do. Enemies are destroying thralls of yours as well occasionally, just area damage, whatever. When you're creating 2 or 3 thralls around, depending on what you're doing with Create Thrall, this can really add up. This can be a lot of healing. So while it's not crazy mind blowing what's happening here, it's a lot of free healing. And gosh, that's really nice on somebody who really doesn't want to be knocked down and is more susceptible to being knocked out than, a tanky marshal. Your level 12 feat is Sanguine Mastery. You gain resistance to bleed damage equal to half your level. If an enemy in 30 feet is bleeding, you gain fast healing equal to half your level. It's not active when you have the dying condition, but otherwise is active. When you destroy a thrall, a creature adjacent to that thrall takes one persistent bleed damage or adds one to any bleeding they're already taking. This can only happen once per round to that particular creature, though, but still. The resistance here is really not great. It's hyper specific and is one of the less likely things you're going to run into. Sure, it helps a little bit, but I don't think that resistance is why you're here. However, what you do want is the fast healing. The fast healing here is awesome. And it's a good amount of fast healing. Half your level. So you get this, you're having 6 fast healing as long as some creature within 30 feet of you is bleeding. Well, given your focus spell, and then of course, kind of the Sanguine's Mastery's own Thrall enhancement, that's probably happening a lot of the time. You probably got enemies bleeding all around, so you can probably be within 30 feet and get your fast healing. Also, it says you don't get the fast healing if you have the dying condition. But if you're unconscious, but no longer dying, say from the stabilize cantrip, you would get the fast healing. So even if you're at 0, as long as you're not dying, you get to heal and you're right back in the fight. This is the only subclass that wasn't in the playtest, and I like it. It works really well for both ranged casters and melee-ish styles of play. They can go either direction. There isn't anything here that specifically leans it toward the latter, like it doesn't need to be a Gish, but constant regen means you can take more damage and therefore, you can be up in melee, taking hits, and you're healing all the time. I wanted to feel like the Thrall enhancement was weak, but really, I mean, think about it. You're level 1, if you have 4 rounds in a combat and you're creating like 2 Thralls, say, every single round, and you're gonna have most of them die, you're probably getting between 4 and 8 hit points during that combat back. When you only have a small number of hit points, that's actually a lot of healing. Anyway, so then we get into the problem with the subclass. Problem is, it's very selfish, right? You're not really helping your allies in any way with this one. You're staying alive, and that's great. And I love the way that you're doing it. I think it's gonna really helpful to you, but you're doing really nothing to help them out at all, which knocks it immediately out of S tier and then knocks it out of A tier because A tier expects you to do something in some way for your allies. Nothing here helps them. So unfortunately, I have to give this a B tier, and I think that's okay. I think B is where this lives. I think it's very good at what it does, and what it does is keep you alive. Next up, we have Bone. The level 1 grave spell here is Bone Spear. This is 2 actions, 30-foot range. You're going to target one thrall. All of them are going to target one thrall. Anyway, and there's going to be a basic reflex save involved. You're going to destroy one thrall. Then each creature in 15-foot line from that thrall makes a basic reflex save against 2d6 piercing damage. Heighten +1 increases by another 2d6 damage. Okay, so you can be 30 feet from your thrall, which is actually really solid for setting up damage. It's a very short line that never increases in range, and that is a little disappointing, but the damage as straight damage is pretty good, right? This keeps up with the amount of damage we'd see from an AoE spell from a spell slot, generally speaking. Usually, focus spells are slightly below that, if only by a d6. This one actually keeps pace. And because it's a 15-foot line, yes, you're not going to get a ton of creatures in it, but I don't think it's crazy to think you can regularly get 2 creatures in it. If you're hitting 2 creatures for that damage, okay, that's actually not bad at all. Against one target, it's even not insane to use it. So I don't think this feels that bad now that it's better than it was in the playtest, which started at lower damage, even though I think it had a better heighten, but it started at lower damage. And that really hurt it at low levels. At low levels, 2d6 is already feeling good. Your thrall enhancement, the speed of your thralls is increased by 5 feet. Simple, easy to understand, and it's a pretty big upgrade when you figure the normal is 15 foot, so it's going from 15 to 20. Now, how often are you going to need to actually move your thralls around? I don't know, but when you do, it'll be impactful to get them into melee range. Keep in mind that having your thralls in melee range with a creature is useful not just because you can potentially do damage with them, but they can flank, right? You can actually flank helping your allies out with one of your thralls. And that might be the most important reason to move them around. So adding an extra 5 feet to help you with that, it'll come in some of the time. Then your level 12 feet is reinforced skeleton. You get 2 resistances. One is either cold fire or electricity, and the other is either slashing or piercing, and the amount is half your level. You also gain a flat 5-foot status bonus to your speeds, but whenever you destroy a thrall, that becomes 10-foot bonus to your speeds for 1 round. These are all selfish, sure, but they are pretty strong buffs. Fire is very common damage type, extremely common, and the other two are common enough. Slashing and piercing are way more common. They happen all the time in every single combat, basically. So, yeah, these are really good resistances to get. When we talk about speed increases, a flat increase is solid. Now, this is a status bonus, so it means that if you're getting speed bonuses from spells and things, they're probably not going to stack because those are almost always status bonuses. But it is still really, really good. And you're not going to probably get bonuses to your speed many other ways. So having a baseline 5, fantastic already. It's as if you took fleet, right? 10 foot every time you destroy a thrall, which is every round almost. Yeah, that's gonna feel fantastic. So, really solid feat take. I would absolutely take this feat if I took this subclass, no question. This saw some significant changes from the playtest. Bone Spear is a much better damage spell now, at least at this, pretty much always it works now. Starts out way better than it did. The range is still tiny, but that can sometimes be a blessing because you don't hit your allies when you hit enemies with this short line, and you can probably hit to a decent amount of the time. Not all the time, but a decent amount of the time. Is it mind blowing? No. It's just damage, but it's good damage. The increased movement for your thralls is 1,000 times easier to understand than what they had in the playtest, which was very confusing. And yes, this is a little uninspired, but it's simple and effective. So I'm not going to complain. I actually like it as a boost, kind of. It can help allies here, right? So last time in Blood, we had no help for allies. The tiniest help for allies here, we can help them a little bit by moving and helping with flanking, which you could already do, but this helps in some situations where that may not have been possible. Then we've got your feet, obviously great speeds, great resistances, a lot of good stuff with that. This is going to fall down the same hole that Blood did though in my rankings where it doesn't really help allies. Yes, the extra 5 feet of movement will help you get to flanking 10% of the time more than you would have before. It's not going to make that big a difference, honestly. I don't feel like it does enough to aid the party to give it the bump to an A, so I'm going to keep it as B. If it had something else, some kind of control element or something, it probably would have been boosted up or some straight support, but I think B is still fair here. It is a good damage choice. All right, our third option is Flesh. Your level 1 Grave spell is Dead Weight. This is 2 actions, 30-foot range, targets 1 thrall. Yes, this is how it works. There's going to be a fort save involved, and it lasts for a round. So the thrall basically tosses itself at a creature within 15 feet, and then the thrall is destroyed. The creature that was targeted then has to make a fort save. On a crit success, nothing happens. On a success, the creature is off guard. On a fail, they are slowed 1 and off guard, and on a crit fail, slowed 2 and off guard for the round. This allows you to potentially hit a creature that is 45 feet away from you, right? Because you create a thrall, or you've got one that's 30 feet away, and then bam, you can hit something further away. That's useful on its own for some control. The fort save isn't my favorite, but we should get used to it. That's basically everything the Necromancer does. Off guard on success is already great for helping out your team, right? All your martial allies are going to be able to take advantage of it being just generally off guard. If you have a rogue, this is nuts. They can just, sneak attack away. The fail and crit fail cases are really, really solid. Slowed plus off guard is a death sentence for a squishier creature. Take like a caster. Now they can't even cast a spell and move. They have to make a choice. And if they don't move, a marshal's probably going to wreck them because they're off guard. So the combo is really painful. And that crit fail, which again, I don't lean into, I don't consider it much in my rankings, but the crit fail is brutal. A creature being slowed to and off guard, it doesn't do anything really. I know that I favor control, so I am keeping that in mind, but I do think this is solid control against a creature already. So I'm not unhappy. In fact, this is a great spell. Your Thrall Enhancement. Whenever a Thrall is destroyed, you can have it leave behind difficult terrain for 10 minutes. So placing difficult terrain for your enemies is always useful, right? You can create really challenging situations for them. Your team has to deal with it too, though. So do keep that in mind, but you control the Thralls. You summon where they're at. You often destroy them. You're pretty much placing where this goes. Not all the time, but you're doing a pretty good approximation of placing it where you want. It is only 5-foot squares individually, but that can still have an effect for controlling the battlefield. As you go up in levels, you might destroy more and more thralls at once. There's cool focus spells that allow you to destroy more and create more and all that. This can end up being a lot of difficult terrain. What I really like is that it always does something. There's not a chance that it's just absolutely useless. You're creating some sort of problem for the enemies in the battlefield. 5-foot movement speed to your thralls might not come in handy ever, right? This will always come in useful in some way. And then we have your level 12 feet, thick skin. First, you increase your hit points by your level. Cool, nice little bonus. When you destroy a thrall for the first time on a round, each enemy adjacent to you, the Necromancer, must succeed at a fort save against your spell save DC or become sickened 1. This is all about a melee gish build in my mind, right? You want them up on you. If you're playing caster or all that, you really don't want enemies up against you. So destroying thralls when they're up on you, you can do that and then run away. You probably just want to get away. This is great for melee gishes. The passive here is going to feel good, especially if you're melee gish. You've got more hit points. The real win, though, is making enemies sickened. A brutal affliction, right? This is basically the same as frightened, but it doesn't go away on its own. They have to spend an action to try to make it go away. Otherwise, they're just going to have decreases to everything they do the entire combat. And that is fantastic. Yes, there's a fort save involved, but every round you can try this, and you're going to be moving up, taking out creatures. This is probably something you're going to get a lot of value out of. If you trigger this before you attack, they have a lower AC against your attack. It's just really, really good. If you choose not to go Gish, I would suggest not picking up this feat because this feat is really about being that melee Gish, in my opinion. Having said all that, this still feels like a more well rounded overall design. The focus spell is just a solid control tool, helps you and your allies, which is great. The debuffs possible by this build are also really solid. The success outcome on that feels good on its own, just making a creature off guard doesn't feel terrible. It's not the greatest use of 2 actions from you, but it also doesn't hurt. The enhancement may not sound like much, but placed properly, it is massive. Over a combat, you can easily place down 6, 8, 10, even at level 1, like a whole bunch of difficult terrain in a weird format that makes it really hard for enemies to avoid it. The level 12 feat is a great option if you're going to be in melee. So, sure, because it's really focused on that, maybe this brings it down a little bit. But all around, this is just solid. You're helping yourself, you're helping your party. It's well rounded. There's control. Yeah, this is an easy A for me. I really like Flesh. Then we get to Spirit. Is it the best? Is it the worst? Let's find out. First, we get Life Tap. This is 2 actions, 30-foot range, targets a thrall. Hey, look, they're all the same. And there's a fort save involved. You're going to choose a thrall in range. Then, from that thrall, you choose a creature within 30 feet of it that has to make a fortitude save. Then the thrall is destroyed. On a crit success, nothing happens. On a success, creature becomes drained 1 for 1 minute. You or an ally within 30 feet gets healed hit points equal to double those lost by the drain. 30 feet of the enemy creature, by the way. A creature can only be healed by this once per 10 minutes, but still, it's the healing. Fail, same, but drained 2, and crit fail is same, but drained 3. This is awesome. The range is really good. It helps you, it helps allies, it inflicts basically what is a permanent debuff because it lasts for a minute, which no combat's lasting longer than that, generally speaking, and it affects their fortitude saves. Keep that in mind. Drain doesn't just reduce their maximum hit points and their current hit points and then heal ally in your case, it reduces their fortitude save by the same number. And almost everything you do is fortitude saves. Huge win for you there. This is hands down the best, in my opinion, of the 4 focus spells. Really solid. Then we have the Thrall Enhancement. Whenever a Thrall would deal physical damage, it can deal Spirit or Void damage instead. These are fantastic damage types. Void, not as good as Spirit. Spirit is just, it's almost never resisted. Things are often weak to it. It's just good. The only way you'll get value from this, though, if you command a Thrall or use the Grave Cantrip Thrall Charge. But honestly, you might do that a fair amount, especially command a thrall if you get it for free when you create thrall. Remember, when you create thrall, if you create less thralls, so one in the general case, or two if you take the puppeteer, you get to command a thrall for free. So you maybe create one right next to an enemy and then straight up attack. Well, great. Now that attack could be Spirit of Void damage. Already it could have been piercing, bludgeoning, or slashing. 5 different choices, you're going to be able to make a good call. So yeah, especially impactful in certain settings, but always very useful. Then we had the level 12 feat become as Spirit. You can move through unwilling creatures as if they were difficult terrain. You ignore natural difficult terrain and have a +2 to escape checks. Whenever you destroy a thrall, you gain resistance to all damage, except spirit, force, vitality, and anything with ghost touch, equal to half your level for 1 round. This is a really interesting set of boosts. Again, survivability focused, but in a more like general way, just trying to stay alive, not up there tanking, but more I just need to stay alive no matter what I'm doing. You're basically impossible to box in or prevent from escaping, right? And being grabbed is all over the place. All sorts of creatures grab you. That's less of an issue for you. A +2 to your escape checks is a lot. So don't ignore that at all. And yes, if you don't want to be a melee gish, this is a good way for you to get away from your enemies because being able to reposition yourself straight through enemies can be impactful. Then we have the resistance. Yes, it's only when you destroy a thrall, but given how often you're going to do that based on my reading of the class, you're going to have this basically all the time. There might be a round where you don't, but this is resistance to basically everything you will ever run into. Force is extremely uncommon. Creatures with ghost touch room type abilities, extremely uncommon, right? These things just don't really come up except for very specific campaigns. So, okay, maybe Spirit of Vitality comes up a little bit more, but even that, how often does Vitality come up? What, you're going to fight angels and things. So these are less likely. This is a strong feat. So here we finally have a focus spell that provides direct aid to allies and even has debuffing control on top of that direct aid. Drained is a solid condition. Even if the drain isn't a ton at low levels, keep in mind it scales kind of with you, right? Because it's based on the level of the creature. The loss to fortitude saves is always fantastic. I love that it even drains on a success. So you're getting something solid out of this no matter what happens. On a fail, Drain 2 is absolutely disgusting for multiple reasons. The -2 to their fort saves and the extra healing for your allies and loss of life for them. It's crazy how powerful that can be. The thrall improvement here is interesting and will be stronger or weaker depending on what other focus spells or feats that you take and support and what you want to use your thralls for, but is pretty solid even just with the create case. So yeah, I like that, and I'm pretty happy with it. Like it's not blowing my mind, but I'm happy with it. Then we have the level 12 feet, which I like just as much as I like the bones level 12 feet or the flesh one here. I do think this is the most generally useful subclass for meeting whatever build you're trying to put together. There's nothing you have to lean into. There's no specific build you have to take, but it can work with any of them. Does it make it S tier? No, I don't think so. I just think it's a really solid A that's very flexible and probably the best A tier for casters because Flesh really leans best into that melee-ish style if you're going to take that level 12 feat and look at the holistic. Otherwise, both of them are really solid. And there are the rankings. I know you don't have to take the level 12 feat, and they are at the end of a character's lifespan for the average character, but I do think they're worth consideration here. And yes, there's a level 1 feat that allows you to take the focus spell from another subclass, but I don't consider that in my rankings, and that's very much on purpose. I want to consider them kind of in their vacuum, right? Not considering other feats you could take and all that. All in all, we have a solid set. Nothing's below B, nothing in the S tier, and that just shows good design, in my opinion. What do you think? Is Blood your favorite? Do you hate the path that Flesh sends you down? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, adventure on.